You are listening to the Vocal Technologist. Spoken tech for your ears.
Welcome in. If you live and breathe product strategy, then you probably know that success today, it isn't just about shipping features faster. It's about solving these deep organizational and structural problems. It's really about knowing where the future is hiding and then, actually building toward it. We've been digging through some fascinating material that you all shared, and today we're really on a mission to unpack the essential nuts and bolts of what separates thriving product strategies from the ones that just burn out. We're going to go from defending your most crucial long-term investments, the boring stuff, all the way to how AI is fundamentally changing or value is even captured in the tech stack.
And it's such a critical framework for anyone building modern products. I mean, the information we're exploring really highlights that central tension in, I think, every growing tech company. It's that constant push and pull, right?
Right.
Between chasing those immediate short-term metrics and building the long-term organizational trust, the health you need for real endurance. We're going to get into some really concrete, high-leverage examples of effective scaling and really dive into some critical alignment issues that, frankly, often go unnoticed until it's a full-blown crisis.
Okay, let's just jump right in, starting with that structural fault line you see in almost every company. The sheer difficulty of justifying what's called care and feeding work. This is the stuff that should be sacred. I mean, R&D, core platform maintenance, paying down tech debt, it's what keeps the engine running.
And yet, it's so notoriously hard to defend. We see product leaders all the time struggling to argue for these investments to, well, what we call the money side executive.
Yeah.
And why? It's because it doesn't show up as immediate attributable revenue on a quarterly P&L. It's just seen as a cost center,
Right.
a drain.
Right, not a strategic investment that reduces future risk or, increases velocity later.
Exactly. And the only way out of that trap, really, is a fundamental shift in perspective away from that sort of transaction-level thinking. You have to treat R&D as a portfolio of investments.
A portfolio, not just a running list of features.
Not just a list of features. When you view it that way, you start measuring its potential for future returns, for diversification, and for long-term organizational strength.
So instead of just saying, well, R&D might generate a cool feature later, we should be measuring things like the reduction in future incident response time, or maybe the increase in team velocity that the work unlocks.
Yes, exactly. You are defending the reduction of future cost and the increase in future capacity. And those are strategically measurable returns that justify the investment today. It completely shifts the discussion from cost to capability.
Capability is a perfect bridge, because if defending R&D requires that kind of long-term thinking, what does an organization built for true long-term endurance even look like? And for that, we can look at one of the most successful examples of scaling, the product model at Google. I mean, what is the secret sauce that allows a giant like that to keep growing and adapting for decades?
Google's success, well, it's really rooted in a model that fundamentally empowers these autonomous teams to solve extremely hard problems. And crucially, it avoids that centralized, top-down feature factory model that just plagues so many large companies.
And what's fascinating is that this empowerment isn't just some vague, feel-good idea. It's backed by a really rigorous structure. The thinking here highlights three distinct key components.
That's right. So first, you have continuous discovery, which means the teams are never done learning. They're always out there seeking new problems, truly understanding user needs. Second, and this is so important, is strong technical leadership. Leadership that commands deep respect and gives clear direction, especially when things get technically complex.
And then that third piece, which makes sure people are actually solving problems and not just, completing tasks, outcome-driven execution.
Precisely. They focus ruthlessly on the desired result, that change in user behavior or a business metric, rather than just checking boxes on an activity list. And that approach is what enabled Google not just to scale, but to dominate mature markets and pivot to huge paradigm shifts, whether that was mobile technology or the generative AI explosion we're in now. It's an adaptable framework, not some rigid checklist.
Okay, so let's take that foundation of organizational health and apply it to some more specialized playbooks. Because it's really clear that certain product areas, just because of their inherent risk, need completely different rules. Let's start with security product management. This is where we see this really distinct challenge called the security PM gap.
This gap is, it's a huge failing point for so many companies. Building security products requires a fundamentally different playbook than building, say, as a standard feature. The core of the problem is that security products are often optimized for the totally wrong user.
For the buyer? You mean they're optimized for the buyer?
Exactly. They're designed for the demo. They look fantastic in a sales presentation. They tick all the procurement checklists, integrate easily with vendor ecosystems. But because they prioritize that buyer experience, they often fail completely during a real incident. They weren't optimized for the actual user, the defender.
The person who's actually fighting a threat at 3 in the morning.
That's the one. The defender needs low false positives, high-stress UI usability, and integration that gives maximum context during an attack. The product that's optimized for the sales pitch is, by its very nature, de-optimized for that person.
It's that classic case of prioritizing a short-term sales metric over long-term trust and utility.
It is. And that exact concept, prioritizing short-term gain over long-term trust, is also the central warning sign around financial super apps. The stakes there are incredibly high.
So what's the specific failure mode that we need to watch out for there?
The warning is very sharp. These financial super apps, they tend to fail when their optimization prioritizes short-term speculation. They get obsessed with these quick wins, gamifying volatile games, pushing high transaction instruments. Basically, they elevate speculation over building long-term financial stability and trust with their users.
And I imagine if the product itself incentivizes that kind of poor financial behavior, it probably looks profitable at first, right? Maybe from high transaction fees or engagement.
It does. It absolutely does. But the underlying consequence is that these products ultimately weaken the core business. While they might spike profitability, once those speculative ventures turn sour, and for some users they always do, the result is just massive customer churn, not to mention reputational damage and regulatory scrutiny.
So you've traded the foundation of a stable long-term relationship for a fleeting metric.
You have. It's a bad trade.
Which brings us back to the hidden engines of a company, that organizational influence. We were talking about how strategy gets undermined by these often invisible internal structures. And that's why we read that org charts are basically funhouse mirrors.
It's a great metaphor. And what's so fascinating is recognizing that the formal structure, your span of control on that chart, it hides how influence really works.
Yeah.
Your span of influence is almost always much broader. I mean, people influence across teams, up, down, sideways, whether the org chart reflects that or not.
And nothing demonstrates that kind of enduring, invisible influence quite like this concept of the eternal Alex coefficient. I think we all have an Alex at our company.
We absolutely do. The eternal Alex coefficient is this idea, this metric, that tries to quantify the residual influence of an employee who's already left. So think about it. Alex left the company 5 years ago. Maybe they were a brilliant engineer, a super influential product leader. But the foundational database schema they designed, or the core design decisions they made, are still the primary constraints slowing down every new feature you want to build today.
Their ghost is still defining your product roadmap.
Exactly. Their ghost is in the machine.
That is so powerful. And if you don't understand that influence, you're constantly fighting shadows. So for teams who are grappling with this kind of complexity right now, we also saw a really simple, practical tool to bring these hidden assumptions out into the light. The initiative shape activity.
Yes, this is such a quick, high-leverage exercise. It's designed to uncover misalignment really early, before a single line of code gets written. It just asks teams to collaboratively articulate and then visualize their assumptions about 3 things: the scope of the project, the relative effort required, and the core goals they're actually solving for.
And just by making those assumptions visible and confronting the mismatch right at the start, you prevent all those execution errors that pop up weeks or months later when everyone finally realizes they were all working toward different things.
It's an early warning system. That's what it is. It's about surfacing the truth that's hidden by the funhouse mirror of everyone's internal assumptions.
Okay, so if we connect this kind of rigor to the bigger picture of product development today, we absolutely have to talk about AI. AI is fundamentally changing how we even define goals and, critically, where product value actually lives. So let's start with that essential goal-setting distinction. The material we looked at draws a really critical line between 2 different notions of a goal.
And this clarity challenge is, I think, paramount for any product manager working with AI agents, autonomous or semi-autonomous. You have to rigorously separate the target states from the success metrics.
Okay, so define the difference for us.
A target state is the internal aim the AI agent is striving for. It's the objective function coded into the model. So for a customer service bot, the target state might be something like maximizing the speed of its response.
Yeah, okay. Speed.
Right. But success metrics are how the human operators judge the agent's actual performance against real-world business goals, like achieving a high rate of first call resolution, or improving customer satisfaction.
And this is where it gets really interesting. Can you give us a scenario where those two things would diverge?
Oh, absolutely. Imagine that customer service bot again. Its target state is speed. So it learns to give a really quick but often generic or incomplete response to maximize its internal metric. Technically, the AI is succeeding at its goal, but the human operator judges that as a failure. Because the customer hangs up unsatisfied and has to call back, the high-speed response completely failed the high-resolution success metric.
Ah.
And separating these two ideas is the absolute key to solving alignment issues. When they're confused, it's impossible to diagnose the root cause of the failure.
That makes perfect sense. So if we understand how to set goals correctly, what then is AI's optimal, non-dangerous role in the product stack? Where does it belong?
The optimal use is pretty clearly defined. AI works best as a translation layer. It's a tool that amplifies human judgment, takes complex input, transforms it, summarizes it, speeds it up, making work easier or faster for the user.
It's an amplifier.
It's an amplifier. It increases velocity and ease, and it allows humans to operate at a higher level.
But there is a real danger zone that product managers need to avoid. So when does AI become counterproductive or even, I guess, dangerous to the product's value?
It becomes dangerous when it tries to replace the actual cognitive work itself, rather than just translating the format or speeding up the process.
Yeah.
When AI attempts to own the core decision-making, the core judgment, instead of simply amplifying the human making that decision, that's when you lose accountability, you lose control, and ultimately you erode the quality of the output. The best AI product managers are designing for augmentation, not for replacement. This is actually a core belief behind a lot of the work we talk about on my show, The Vocal Technologist.
And that shift, thinking about augmentation, that leads directly to this huge prediction about the future of the value chain. We're talking about the concept of the system of records front door.
Yes, and this is a tectonic shift. I really believe that. If we look at the big picture, traditional systems of record, the databases, the platforms where all the critical data lives, they are absolutely going to survive. They're necessary infrastructure.
But historically, owning the data was everything. Whoever had the biggest data set won. Is that still true in an AI-powered world?
I would say no, it is not. In the AI era, owning the interface, what we call the front door to the data, captures significantly more product value than just owning the underlying data itself. The AI-enabled interface is where human judgment gets amplified, where complex information gets translated, and most importantly, where the user actually takes action.
So the interaction point, that layer sitting on top of the system of record, that becomes the greatest strategic asset. That front door is where you interact, where you monetize, where you differentiate yourself. You need to think less about the depth of your data and more about the quality and a utility of that translation layer you put on top of it.
Exactly. That front door is the gatekeeper of value.
This has been a really rich journey through the modern product manager's playbook. I mean, we've covered a lot of ground today. From the necessity of treating R&D like a financial portfolio to the high-stakes risk of prioritizing short-term speculation over building long-term user trust, especially in areas like finance and security.
And we close with this new reality that organizational influence is often hidden, which requires tools like the initiative shape activity. And critically, that interface ownership, the front door, is becoming paramount to capturing value in an AI-first world. These concepts really do offer you a critical framework for not just surviving, but thriving in modern product strategy, whether you're scaling a small team or trying to run a global enterprise.
So here's something for you to ponder as you head back to your own product work. If the front door captures the most value and the eternal Alex coefficient proves that departed talent still holds enduring influence over a company years later, how should organizations calculate the real, enduring product value that's contributed by a designer or a leader who successfully defines a critical, valuable interface, only to leave the company right after launching that new front door? Think about that legacy value that just walked out the door. We'll catch you next time.
Spoken Tech, for your ears.